My name is Scott Shepard. I'm originally from Indianola, Mississippi, which is in the Mississippi Delta. Indianola was a hotbed of racial trouble back when I was growing up. I now live in South Haven, Mississippi, which is the metropolitan Memphis area. I'm going to repeat something that Jeff said. We get into these organizations, and there's no, and of course, like Daryl says, there's no cookie cutter that fits all. We're all different. My story goes a little different than Jeff's. I came from a very dysfunctional family. My father was a very violent alcoholic. And when I say violent alcoholic, I mean violent alcoholic. He would come in and beat my mother, abuse the kids, physically and verbally. He very, very much had some bad issues, but I'll give you an example of something that he did when I was a very young child. I probably wasn't even in kindergarten at the time, but I know a lot of you know what space heaters are in your house, where you'd keep warm. Well, we had a box of kittens sitting next to this heater where we'd keeping them warm. There was about 6 of them. He came in drunken rage, and after beating my mother, tearing up all the furniture and leaving no furniture standing on its own feet. Some was thrown through glass windows and out in the yard. And these are things we witnessed, where he reached down in this box of kittens and took one kitten after another and threw them about 10 feet across the room and splattered them on the wall. And at that time, at my age, I was, like I said, I wasn't even in kindergarten. But seeing this probably, and of course, I now know it instilled PTSD into myself and my older brother, older sister, and then my younger siblings. This left me with a lot of anger, hatred. I didn't like anyone, didn't like myself, no self-esteem. And I didn't have a family at all. I mean, I just was there and didn't know which way to turn. So I started looking for a place to fit in. And like I said, at that time, the Ku Klux Klan was right there in my backyard with all the racial trouble that was going on. And I was about 16 years old, and I had to go to Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I had a sister there. And we went to visit her, and right there in the phone book, the Yellow Pages, was a listing for Knights of the Ku Klux Klan. 700 Florida Boulevard, Denham Springs, Louisiana. They had an office on the main road. I rode past that office several times. Didn't find anyone there, so I found out that the Imperial Wizard lived on Eden Church Road in Denham Springs, so I went to his house. I went to his house and told him what I was looking for and that I wanted to get involved with the Ku Klux Klan, not really knowing what I was getting involved with. So he said, well, we're having a rally in Tupelo, Mississippi in a couple of weeks. I'd like for you to attend. Tupelo, Mississippi wasn't that far from where I lived. So I went to that rally, and there was a lot of Klansmen and spectators and Klansmen that are in plain clothes. They put their arm around my shoulder and told me, said, we know you had a bad life, and we can help you, we can protect you, and you join with us, we'll take care of you and teach you. And that's exactly what they did. But they taught me the wrong things. I didn't know a whole lot about the violence that was going on. I knew about the violence, but I didn't know the extent of it. And of course, there's several Klan organizations that are going on across this country now, and was then. But in this one organization that was based out, like I said, out of Louisiana, I joined officially at 16 years old, lying about my age at that time. And by the time I was 19 years old, I had shown so much gung-ho energy about getting involved. Because as soon as I joined that organization, I had a feeling of importance. I found what I was looking for. And I joined that Klan organization and became a Grand Dragon at the age of 19, which usually isn't a common practice. They're usually, older, but I became a Grand Dragon at 19 years old. During that time, of course, the Klan organizations, like I said, there was different Klan organizations. They had, inner turmoil between each other, fighting and bickering between the different Klan groups, trying to get, members from this group and that group. Well, I changed organizations and ended up with the United Klans of America out of Tuscaloosa, Alabama. And at that time, it was, the gentleman is dead now. Imperial Wizard was Robert Shelton, probably one of the most notorious Klansmen in the country at that time, and may still have that that title now as being one of the most violent ones. Well, inside that organization, I got involved with many notorious Klansmen. Byron De La Beckwith. Byron De La Beckwith, as they said, murdered Medgar Evers. Byron De La Beckwith became my godfather. Then there was the several members of the people that killed the 3 civil rights workers in Philadelphia, Mississippi. There was J.B. Stoner, who was very anti-Semitic. He would walk around with signs that praise God for AIDS and just very vile stuff like that. Well, like I said, I was, of course, involved with that organization. And during this time, I lost total contact with my family. My wife, and of course, prior to that, I was involved with a young lady, and she didn't like what I was doing either, and she ended up committing suicide over it. We had planned on getting married, and of course, with my wife, my second wife, it caused a lot of trouble. I lost relationships with my daughter, my sister, just about my entire family, because they didn't agree with me. And one reason they didn't agree with me because I was raised by a black lady. The black lady was a caretaker for my grandmother, and she wasn't a maid in my book, what they call a maid or housekeeper or anything like that. She was more like a mother to me. She was there when my mother was brought into the house when she was adopted. She took care and raised my mother, raised my older brother, raised my older sister, raised myself and my younger siblings. And her family was my family. She was my family. Her name was Rebecca Scott Hawkins. Rebecca Scott Hawkins is where I got my first name, Scott. I was named after her. I had a very, very troubled grandmother at the time also, who didn't agree with my mother married my father, because she had more up-de-doo expectations for my mother. But my mother married him anyway, and of course I was born. And when I was born, my grandmother said she wasn't going to have anything to do with me or even touch me. She sent Rebecca, and Rebecca took care of me. And like I said, she took care of my younger brother and younger sister also. Well, my grandmother died, and of course Rebecca went on and built herself a a catering business and was very successful at it. But she was still my family, and her family was my family. We celebrated holidays together. But that relationship became estranged because of my involvement in the Ku Klux Klan. I didn't associate with her. I didn't visit her, even call her during that time because basically I was ashamed. But during that time I was in the movement, I always had this little voice in the back of my head. Do you really believe the things that you're preaching and spouting off about? But I was so full of hatred and anger that, I just ignored that. And it came a time, again, I had to go to Baton Rouge, Louisiana. My sister was there, and she was dying of breast cancer. So I went to Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and I was there. And with my sister laying there on her deathbed, she asked me, she said, well, I'll back up a little bit. Of course, I had been appointed Imperial Wizard of the Murder Knights of the Ku Klux Klan. And they had a rally down in Alabama. And I was really, teeter-tottering, had an internal battle about what I was doing. But I went to that Klan rally in Alabama, the last one I went to. I didn't say anything about leaving or resigning because the oath you took was very, very intense and could cost you your life. So I left that Klan rally, came back to Memphis, Tennessee, and totally just disappeared from that Klan group. Like I said, then I was called back to Baton Rouge because I was in hiding also. I went back to that hospital in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, where my sister was, and she asked me, she said, do you regret the things that you've done in your life and in the past? I said, very much so. I really do. She stopped and hesitated a minute, then she looked at me. She said, you can take what you've done and turn it around and help other people. And I heard what she said, but I just really didn't grasp it because I still had anger and hatred, built up inside of me. So I just didn't really listen to what she had to say. Well, while I was there, she and I, before she died, we sat on the floor, watched Hurricane Katrina come into New Orleans. And being a funeral director and embalmer, I went in and helped with the retrieval and returning of the deceased back home to the families. And I walked into a situation that I had walked into prior that I had not mentioned yet. I was in Nashville, Tennessee. I was at a restaurant and having a few drinks and having a meal. And the FBI was watching me because at the time they had some mail bombs going off in Alabama and Georgia and killed some people. And of course it turned out that it was another gentleman who had trouble with the courts and was very angry, and he wanted to make it look like a white supremacist plot, and he was the one setting off the bombs. But the FBI came and questioned me. And of course that conversation didn't go very well with the mindset I was in. Very, very foul words. I think I called him Dennis Weaver, New York cowboy or something like that. And just, it was just a very argumentative interview. And with the law enforcement watching me, there was also a Klan rally being held in Pulaski, Tennessee. And I filed a lawsuit on behalf of the Klan for constitutional violation of refusing the issue as a permit to march down the main road of Pulaski. Well, after leaving that restaurant, that I had been at and eating, like I said, the law enforcement was watching me. They pulled me over. They pulled me over and they asked me, of course, if I'd been drinking, and they knew I'd been drinking. And they gave me a field sobriety test, and I failed it. They also found a weapon underneath the seat of my car. It was not a pistol or just a plain rifle. It was a very high-powered rifle, an assault weapon. Well, after that, it threw me into the court system. I went into the court system, and I got a public defender from Memphis, Tennessee. And I didn't give you his name because he was a good lawyer. Daryl was his name. And, of course, I didn't know who Handel was at the time, so I went to his office. Told him I was there to see him, and they said he'll be here in just a minute. So they called me into his office. I took 2 steps into his office and stopped and went, oops, I'm in trouble. Handel was black. And I knew then, I said, I'm not getting out of this. He's not going to defend me with my background. He's not going to defend me the way that he should. But I was wrong. He did. And, he handled my case probably stronger than he has other people's cases. But Handel soon left the public defender's office and went back into practice, private practice. And to my surprise, he took me with him and took my case with him. And he defended me on different other cases, a federal harassment case, and got me out of that. But Handel didn't charge me one dime, not one dime. And we're still friends today. He's still in Memphis practicing. Well, there's a plan that a lot of people use when they get into that situation. I didn't come up with it. It was there, so I took advantage of it. I said, well, I'm going to go to an alcohol and drug treatment center and get the paperwork and take it back to the judge and get charges dropped. And I did that. But what I didn't know is that when I walked in that alcohol and drug treatment center, I went in one person and came out another. I walked into a place where the director called me into his office. He said, sir, I know your background, seen you all over the news. We have black patients here, people of all different religions, sexual preferences. How are you going to handle that? I said, I don't care. I just want the paperwork and go back to the judge and go back on with my racist life. And, well, it didn't turn out that way. I went in, and it was like a cabin set up. I think there's like maybe 16 people to a cabin. Well, of course, walking into that treatment center and all these people of different races and religions, sexual preferences, I just really didn't know what to do. I was really stunned. I guess one of the most important things was it was really strange. These people were showing me love and compassion. And these are the same people that I was spouting hatred and very vile comments about prior to going in. And, of course, during this time, we had to attend meetings, group meetings together and share intimate details of our life. And, of course, we were in groups, and I was with these same people, and I felt very uncomfortable, as you can imagine. And I was sitting in the lounge, and then, of course, there were several other people in there. I noticed a black gentleman over next to the wall. He was ironing his clothes that he was going to wear that day. So he went in and changed, and he came back out. He was wearing white socks, white shoes, white pants, white shirt, and a white cap. And he walked over to me, and he said, I want to join the Ku Klux Klan. And I just stood there for a minute. And then all of a sudden I broke out in a big laugh, like the whole room did. And that was the icebreaker for myself. It really helped me. That gentleman became a good friend and contacted me not long ago after seeing him for so many years and asked me if I remembered him. I said, yes, I remember you, been looking for you. And we correspond today. But that was an icebreaker. And then, I was able to mix with the people, and nothing was ever said about my background except for in, private meetings. Well, I left that treatment center, and like I said, I left that with somewhat of a seed planted inside my head and or inside myself. And I got out, and I didn't really grasp what had happened in that treatment center at the time, and I did go back to my racist life, but not like I was involved before. I went into that, and that takes me back to the Hurricane Katrina when I went in and worked with these people. I walked into the federal building compound where I was working out of, and here I was in the same situation. These people didn't know my background, but they were people from all over the country. Different races, religions, sexual preferences, and they too showed me love and respect. And these, like I said, these were the same people that I was spouting hatred to and calling them really foul names and trying to intimidate them when I was inside the Klan. And again, like I said, this is when my sister made her comment. Do you think you could take what you did and turn it around and help someone else? And I remember what my sister said at that time. She died 2 days later after saying it. And but I didn't forget it. Well, I finished that mission with the hurricane, went back home to, I was in Memphis. I was living in Memphis at that time. Went back to Memphis, and I got sick, and I started having a lot of health issues, and ended up having 2/3 of my stomach removed, and I almost died. While I was inside the movement, I heard about a man named Daryl Davis. He was going around to these Klan organizations and meeting with Klan groups and Klansmen individually, and I thought he was a crackpot. and I called him probably every name in the book, including the big N word. But that was the mindset again when I was inside the movement. Well, after having the surgery and almost dying, I had a lot of time to recover at home. And when I was recovering at home, the Discovery Channel came on television, and they were doing a segment on Daryl Davis. And at that time, what he said made sense. And I was teeter-tottering on the fence. I didn't know what to do. I'd lost all my friends on this side. But, well, they really weren't friends. They were the white supremacists. They didn't want to have anything to do with me. I was a race traitor to the white race and whatever else they wanted to call me. This side, I didn't have any friends or family because they didn't want to have anything to do with me for what I had done joining the organization. So I didn't know what to do. And I was really at a low point there in contemplating suicide. Well, when Daryl came on the Discovery Channel, what he said made sense. And I searched Daryl out, and I think I found him on Facebook. And when he was on Facebook, I sent him a message, and he responded back. And we started a conversation, and then it turned out that, we swapped phone numbers and we talked. And like I said, Daryl didn't just offer his phone number. He didn't just offer a conversation. Daryl offered his heart and mind and soul to me. And Daryl saved my life because, like I said, I was really at a point in contemplating suicide. And Daryl came to Memphis and visited with me. We continued our relationship, and then he became my brother. And when becoming my brother, I'm not talking about just in words or anything like that. Daryl became my real brother. And that kind of leads me to where I am today. He asked me to be part of the film that Jeff was in also, Accidental Courtesy, and I went to Washington, D.C., spent a lot of time with Daryl when we filmed that movie, and I too suggest that you see it, called Accidental Courtesy. Very educational film, that I would say. And like I said, that leads me to where I am today. I started out saying I was going to try to help young people, keep them from falling for the traps that I fell for as a young kid. And if they have trouble with home life or whatever, if it's not both parents, go to the parent they're not having trouble with, or seek out, a religious leader or someone that they, trust. Well, that's where I kind of changed my direction and started going two ways. I figured, adults needed this too. So this is where we are. We're reaching out to many people that we can, and they call us and need help. They want us, want people to talk to crowds like this to kind of explain to them where we came from and that we're all human beings. And regardless of what we join or get involved with, you can change. But you got to want to change. Like I said, I looked in the mirror and I saw the problem. The problem was Scott Shepherd. And I had to work from there. And that's where we're at today with Daryl and Jeff Scoop and myself. We're trying to get the word out that, love, compassion, and respect each other is what's needed in this society for us to break down the barriers of racial discrimination and racial hatred. And I'll use another example. At the time when I was inside the movement, just like this room, if this was a cafeteria and had tables in different areas, you'll see blacks sitting over at this table, Hispanics, white people, and they, I guess they just, feel comfortable with their own people. Now I understand that. But when I was inside the movement, I use that as an example, saying, see, everybody wants to be separate. They don't want to mix with each other. So that's how it needs to be, racial segregation and separation. But now I can use that, and I do. These tables got these different people sitting at them. They don't know each other. I know you all probably don't know each other. And if you talk and have conversations, you'll get to know each other and become friends. But what needs to happen is in these groups with these cafeteria tables, someone needs to get off the butt and walk across the room and sit down at the other table with these people and start up a conversation. And like Daryl says, you'll find out maybe 5 minutes or so you got something in common. Daryl and I had a lot in common. We both like music. I grew up on Delta blues. He plays music, and there's a lot of things in common that I won't talk about.
Scott.
But
Scott Shepherd, Jeff Scoop, Daryl Davis have offered us an absolutely powerful reality. So we want to just take a short amount of time for two things. One, we're going to let Daryl close us out on just a few short words. But first, we want to offer the opportunity for just a few people, I won't keep you long, but if there are questions that you have, and unfortunately, we can't offer a lot of dialogue, but if there are questions that you have for these gentlemen, now would be the time for that. We have one over here and one over here. I'll try to repeat them. Plan was for me to come down there, see if that'll work. The lady over here in the orange, I think I saw her. And you guys will help me with whoever's next. Please.
Hi, my name is Connie, and what I'd like to ask, what about your extended family now? Are they supportive of you?
Very much
Are they-
so. Very much so. Rebecca Scott Hawkins died just probably 2-3 years ago at the age of 104. And I'm very grateful that I was able to reconcile with her and have several years before she passed away. And we were really close. There's a short documentary out on the internet called What Does a Reformed Racist Look Like? It's about 8 minutes, so it doesn't take long to look at it, but you can look it up and find it. And it's an interview and 8-minute documentary of me and Rebecca Scott Hawkins in her home in Indianola. But yes, I'm very grateful for that, and I wish she is here today.
She is spiritually.
Yes, ma'am.
Great, we have one more question over here.
Thanks. There's a lot of controversy right now on college campuses and podcasts and who they choose to platform. So my question is, how do you balance not platforming people with reprehensible ideas versus challenging them and communicating with the people with those ideas?
Well, I'll give you my answer, then they can volunteer theirs. I don't believe in deplatforming people, okay? Because when you do that, they will still get platform. It may not be on your platform, but you're driving them to somewhere else, maybe a more nefarious echo chamber. And that's where it festers and boils. It's just like a pressure cooker. If there's no release valve, it explodes. And that's what happened in Charlottesville. That's what happened at the Capitol insurrection where I live. So it's important, that we give everybody the right to freedom of speech. We may not agree with what they say, but if they can say it in a civil tone and civil dialogue, then allow them to air their views. Because the best way to fight bad views and bad information is to provide better information. That's how you do that.
There you go. Daryl, I'm going to make sure we're going to offer you probably about a minute and a half to.
I'll take
close
less
out
than
if
that
you'd
because
like. Are you good?
I'll relinquish my time for more questions. But I'll just say one little thing: a missed opportunity for dialogue is a missed opportunity for conflict resolution. Had it not been for dialogue, these people would not be sitting here today talking to you. Because people can change. So, with that last minute, go ahead and ask another question.
That is absolutely fantastic.
And you can ask anything you want. We have no guardrails.
We're just about there. So I heard maybe one more. Here, I'm going to.
Mine is a very basic question. How often do the three of you get together and do this type of presentation?
We get together as often as we can. Each of us speak individually on our own, and then upon occasion, sometimes Jeff and I might speak, sometimes Scott and I might speak, sometimes the three of us might speak, sometimes, I will invite some others. So we'll have 5 former extremists, white supremacists, all on the same panel. It all depends upon our schedules, but we try to do it as much as we can.
Because it all flows together.
Yes. Because we're all human beings at the end of the day.
Got time for one more. Last one.
Answer that.
Hi, Jeff. My name's Judith.
You said something about having previously believed you were serving a noble cause. Can you talk about what that was or what that looked like for you and how you've reconciled that now?
Well, when I got involved in this, I believed that I was going to save the white race, that I was doing something to serve my country. So I saw that as patriotism and as defending my people. So that's the mentality that a lot of people have where they're at that point. And that's why I was saying about having those conversations with people and what Daryl just said about free speech and all that sort of thing. When we start censoring and we start telling people, you can't talk about this or you shouldn't talk about this, we all know in this room that the white race isn't facing genocide and that sort of thing. But in the movement, what we would do is we would show videos of some of the most horrendous stuff, like some of the farm murders in South Africa or things like that. We'd point out these violent, racially tinged videos and things like that, and we'd show them to our people. And at the time, we weren't saying, oh, we're going to do that to make everybody afraid, like that's what it is. But that's not what you're thinking at the time. It's like, look, that happened to a farmer in South Africa, that's going to happen to all of us. And that's the kind of stuff that we were pumping out all the time. And some of those videos, I'm telling you, they're stuck. Unfortunately, because there's stuff when you see something so horrific, you can't unsee it. And unfortunately, some of that stuff is always stuck there. But now I realize, those are horrific incidents, but they are not just because someone's white or just, based on that, and sure, there's people that harm others based on their skin color and things like that and all that, but that's not the way the majority of the world is. And in an extremist mindset, everyone's like that. Even when people are coming out, one of the most common questions that I get is, are you a communist now or are you Antifa? I said, wait a minute, what is making you think that? Literally one after the other, they keep asking that. I said, well, you know what? I thought that way too when people left, that all of it, just because you've left extremism on the far right, now you must be on the far opposite extreme on the other side, and that's not accurate. It does happen, but that's what you would call that's just someone that's just switched their forms of radicalization or extremism. Typically when someone comes out, there's all this gray area in the middle, and they don't see that because we're thinking in the extremes. So it's getting past that. I could give a longer answer, but I think you got it.
Judith, let me just dovetail into what Jeff said real quick. For those of you who have not seen the farm murder in South Africa, there is a scene that everybody in here has seen that explains exactly what Jeff was talking about. Everybody who went down there, where I live, to the U.S. Capitol on January 6th. Let me tell you something. You all don't live in Washington, D.C. There are protests at the Capitol every day. It's been going on for years. That's where you go to protest. On the steps. Most people don't go busting through the window and breaking down the doors and tearing up Pelosi's office or whatever else, all right? Every one of those people thought they were doing a noble cause. They thought they were saving their country for whatever reason. But that's what he's talking about, that mentality. Okay.
All right. So, all you that had your hands raised at the beginning about that unexpected friendship, I hope you kept that friend in mind. You've heard these amazing stories and life experiences of these unexpected friends, and I think that that's powerful. So I would encourage you to go tell somebody about their stories, about their exhibits, and I hope that it's left a lasting impact on you today to have heard about fear, about belonging, about othering, about family, and then finally, from the mission that these guys are on, to encourage dialogue and to encourage understanding that you will have some level of hope from this experience. So thank you, Scott. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Daryl. Please have a good evening.
In conclusion, I want to thank the JCC. I want to thank the Orlando Holocaust Education Center for putting on programs like this, because a lot of people won't do this. They consider it very controversial. It'll stir up stuff and people get in trouble and da-da-da. So these people have shown the courage to put on programs like this. And I also want to acknowledge a very, very special person with whom I would never have been connected with this whole operation, the Holocaust Education Center here in Orlando. Karen, stand up for a moment. She's the one who introduced me to this whole thing right here. Karen Bogart, thank you.